I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I think that I am going to do a live stream that is devoted to basically like I did that community tab story review. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a live stream one day that is just one entire live stream where I go over everything from basic tactics to sanitation to logistics and more, and equipment and everything else, and just put it all in one entire stream for everybody. That way, I can just have everything in one central location and make it in such a way to where it's presented just in a clear, concise manner to where it all just sort of flows together into one work. So that is what I'm thinking about doing. And I wanted to do this one because I've had a lot on my mind about a lot of different things, but a lot of which is in regards to people's personal plans. And I'm talking about my subscribers or anybody who listens into me. I'm really curious to know how many people have learned a lot from, being that my channel is an educational channel and all, being that it's just packed full of documentaries and information and, factoids and everything else. I want to know, have people taken it seriously? Have they used the information and integrated it into their emergency planning for a war type of situation or a collapse type of situation? I just want to know. I'm really curious to know. I have done all of this work for people, so I just want to know, how has it affected people's planning? Did they learn anything from it? Did they learn? Did it help shatter any misconceptions about warfare and what it looks like, how it moves like? Did it did it show people the mechanics of war to where they can understand how armies really work and how they don't work? Because there's a lot of misconceptions. People think that armies are some sort of monolithic types of entities that can just be everywhere and do everything, when that's not the case at all. There's a lot of mechanics involved. There's a lot of dynamics involved. You have to have logistics. And I've hammered that point home as hard as I could, be it in my documentaries or be it in my regular shows, like my Friday shows where I, cover different topics and carry out a monologue where I talk, where I just talk about these things and every so often, check the chat, see what people are saying. If there's any questions that need addressed, I address the questions. But I'm just curious to know, what, if anything, have people learned from all the work on this channel? Because this is an educational channel, first and foremost. It is an educational channel made to teach people about how these things work, the mechanics and inner workings. I just have to know, what have people learned, and if anything, and what have they used? What have they used to integrate into their own personal emergency planning? In fact, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and check the chat right now, see who's all in here, and say my greetings. And before I go further into this, let's see who's in here. All right. Oh, I have to push all these buttons here. Okay. Hey there, Casey. How are you today? I was over on your live, and I've saved it in 4 of my playlists. I saved it in my, practical preparations. Oh, I thought you were asking about your video. I actually put your live you just did in 4 different playlists. I put them in the This is America Now, or This is the USA Now playlist, and a few other ones. What playlists are my practical preparations in? Well, I would say that really, you should listen to all the simulations, but also, I have done a very good, very detailed one as far as like your like practical preparations are concerned. Where when I type those stories out, I made a community tab story review playlist, and the purpose of that playlist was I put everything in there. It was like building blocks. I started very slow, very small, and worked my way up to more complicated things, be they the tactics that were used in the story, and I show how they work, like basic battle tactics that anybody could even learn, or they could try to, realize what the enemy is going to use on them so that they can either come up with countermeasures that are practical or they can know how to get out of situations. I also had the effects and impacts of logistics. I had field sanitation. I had nomadism and semi-nomadism, where it goes over what the characters did in the story that worked and what didn't work and why, as far as, nomadism and semi-nomadism, because those stories were really typed out to teach people how to live in such an environment of having to be nomadic or semi-nomadic. I even went over the logistics and the impact of logistics on both sides, whether it was the invader side, the Chinese and Russians, or whether it was the partisans, the American partisans, which are like your, guerrillas, insurgents type things. I went over the impact of logistics on both sides. I even covered, toward the end, I covered, what else did I cover? Okay. I covered the field sanitation, logistics, the impact of such tongue twisters, semi-nomadism and nomadism. I covered battle tactics, and I got more advanced with how they were used, showing the situations they were used in. I took specific parts of these stories, highlighted them, and showed how it worked when I wrote the stories. But I used illustrations. I used illustrations to cover it. So I worked my way up from equipment, organization, coordination, all that. And I worked my way up to tactics to show how the things worked on maps and illustrations. So if you really wanted to, even if you didn't read the stories per se, if you didn't read the stories, you can still go watch the Community Tab story review. It's some 25 videos long. They're not very long videos. These are like short videos. I think the longest is like 10 or 15 minutes. The rest are like really short, like 3 to 5 minute videos. It is really only like over an hour long, like the entire playlist. If you took like maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours, you could sit through the whole 25 video playlist. It's really not that long. I don't even think it's 2 hours. I think the entire thing's only like an hour and a half. But that's a very educational, very great playlist to sit through and watch. And the sanitation thing is really important because these are things that eliminate lots of people in a third world environment, and all of it is preventable. It's all preventable. In fact, that's one of the most important videos in the whole playlist. They're all important, but that's one of the most important ones. It's further into the playlist because I have to work my way up. Like I said, it's like building blocks. I start very slow, very simple, but you have to start somewhere. You have to lay the cornerstone. And I lay the cornerstone talking about organization, and then I work my way up to more advanced concepts and things as it relates to such a situation of surviving a war, a foreign invasion. And the simulations are great to watch, of course, too. And those are very long. They're very long and drawn out. Now, we're talking documentaries that literally cover every single solitary aspect of what happens on a map. Like, I mean, we're talking really in depth. We're talking from like regional level views all the way down to like smaller level views, like okay, you got the whole country, but then you got like different regions of it. And then you go into like the sub-regions. You have sub-regional maps that are within the regional maps. And then some of those are even broken down to the smallest. Like we're talking like individual troops on the ground and individual vehicles. I break some of them down, whether that's in the Pacific Northwest playlist or whether that's even in the even in the 96-hour invasion playlist, if you go watch toward the end where there's the Florida battles, the Florida campaigns, and also in the battle of the capital, D.C., I even, like in the last video, I break it all the way down to like where there's individual troops on the ground where they're fighting over like the last defense line where the mall is. I mean, it's really like broken down in depth in great detail in that documentary. So you can watch those and they'll teach you a lot. If you're interested in that, this is like Low Budget History Channel. Remember, this is Low Budget History Channel. So yeah, absolutely, you should watch those. It'll teach you a lot. Now, the 96-hour invasion one is a 36 video playlist. It is 36 videos from beginning to end, and it covers different regions. But that one is more highlighting like your human settlements, which is like cities and towns, and then it also covers the infrastructure objectives as well as installations, because you know the enemies are going to go for those first, as well as big cities and medium cities, and infrastructure like power plants and things like that, bridges, whatever, highways. They're going to go for all of that stuff first. They're going to emerge from their CCP regime properties. I'm talking about your Trojan elements, because you have whole entire PLA, which is the Chinese regular army, and you have entire PAP, which is like a paramilitary element within their greater paramilitary forces, which even include their national militia, which is like their paramilitary version of what our Army National Guard would be. They could easily use those. We used our National Guard abroad, even though they're technically not supposed to be used abroad. We still used ours abroad for the manpower reasons, because we had to rotate troops because our military is tiny. It is tiny. In comparison to China's forces, it's immensely smaller. So the Chinese would obviously use theirs for a nation this big too. They would use all of their types of paramilitary, whether it's their national militia, their marine militia, which is like it's like the combo of like, if you blended our Marine Corps Reserve with our Coast Guard, that would be like the Chinese Marine Militia. That would be like their paramilitary equivalent of like blending what the Marine Corps Reserve and our Coast Guard together would be. Because they can fully engage in combat, but they also patrol their coasts. You have their national militia, which is like a paramilitary version of like our Army National Guard, but for China. You have their PAP, which is their People's Armed Police, which is like a fanatical, like Praetorian Guard type of element for like the CCP regime. It's like what the Waffen SS was for like the Nazis, or like the Republican Guard for Iraq, or like, like they have a paramilitary, which is like a parallel military. It's like they have two militaries. That's what paramilitary means. It means parallel military. Like you have two, like you have your regular and you have your parallel military forces. So it's like you have two different militaries. China has two different militaries. They have their paramilitary, which is humongous. It's like 20 million troops, like paramilitary forces, and they're all combat grade, capable, trained by their military. So their military is separate. Their their PLAAF, which is their Air Force, their PLAN, which is their Navy, and then you have the Strategic Missile Forces or Strategic Rocket Forces, however you want to call. I've heard it used interchangeably. But that's the four branches of their regular military. Then you have their paramilitary, which includes their National Construction Corps, which is like their equivalent, but they're armed and trained in combat. They're like combat engineers, essentially, but paramilitary combat engineers. They're like the equivalent of what our Army Corps of Engineers would be, only they're armed and trained in combat. So it's like, they have all these different paramilitary entities within their paramilitary troops. So China is going to invade us with this humongous gargantuan force they have of their armed forces, their regular and parallel military forces. They're going to invade us, and they're going to come off of their CCP regime properties, and they're going to go for all these different objectives. So the whole 96-hour invasion documentary series was highlighting mostly the objectives part of it. Now, The Pacific Northwest one covers that as well, but it's a lot shorter. It's only 10 videos long. And it mainly is there to highlight terrain features, topography, and terrain. Like the Northwest has a whole host of different terrain features. It's very sparsely populated. We're talking about a part of our country where there's not that many people. You know, Montana, Idaho, places like that. There's not that many people in that part of the country. But there's a lot of terrain variety. You have deserts. Because the Great Basin Desert extends all the way into southeastern Oregon and southern Idaho. And then you have plains where the desert sort of tapers off. Then you have forests. You have mountains because you have the Rockies. You have the Cascades. You got Cascadia. You have all of that right in the same region. And the topography and the geography is what I highlighted in that region. More so than I even did the settlements, like the human settlements, like the towns and cities and whatnot. Although I did show a little bit of contrast between the battles that occurred along I-5 right there in Washington State, and then also the battles that occurred in the mountains on the state line of Idaho and Montana. Those were the two main areas I highlighted in that documentary. Very, very good to watch. Very good to watch. If you want to understand how terrain and geography affects things, now that's what you want to watch. Now, there's also the 96-hour invasion, which is more about your objectives, just your human settlements, your infrastructure, and things and installations and things like that. But they both really can teach you. They're both along the same timeline, same line of events, but just different regions. They just cover different regions. So those two are great to watch. If you want to learn about the internal conflict, watch the Second American Syrian style documentary. It's a 5 live show playlist. I had to put them in lives because that is the longest single documentary I've ever done, ever. I mean, we're talking multiple hours long. It's longer than even watching 96-Hour Invasion and Pacific Northwest together. It's longer than that. It was a very long and very in-depth playlist. 5 live shows combined. The first one is nothing but storytelling. The second one, it starts off with storytelling, but halfway through, then it shows visuals like your battle maps, and it talks about further in as you go. It talks about the leadership. It talks about the economic and financial situations in each of the factional areas that they control. It just goes into so much detail. It even talks about atrocities that each faction committed against other factions and so on and so forth. It's very in-depth, very detailed. It can teach you a lot about those types of situations. Just like the stories I typed out for the invasion, just like the audiobook I'm doing now, just like the battle maps I've done for the invasion, and the Community Tab Story Review playlist. If you want to learn how to survive some of this stuff, there's a lot of practical gems of knowledge. We're talking like gems, gold. It's gold. There's a lot of golden knowledge in there that you can use to help you get through these types of things, navigate them. I mean, but I'm not going to be disingenuous. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people are not going to make it, but I want to help as many make it as I can. And I feel like, because I know God put it on me to share this wealth of knowledge with people about these types of situations, I feel like everybody that is subscribed to me that listens to this on a regular basis, I feel like God is going to help you all make it. I really do. I feel in my spirit God is going to help you all make it, because he sent you to my channel so that you could learn about this stuff. Nothing happens for no reason. I mean, You didn't find my channel for no reason through all the shadow banning, through all the regular types of attacks I endure. You didn't find my channel for no reason. God led you here for a reason. I feel like that's the case. So you should take all this information and integrate it into your emergency plans, your evacuation plans, whatever type of planning you need to make for yourself and your family, your defense plans, all of it. You were not sent here for no reason. I don't believe that. So everybody that's here is here for a good reason. Amen. So let's see here. Yeah, they are. They are two groups of elitists, Kathy. They are. The Eastern elites of of Eastern Europe and Asia, the Eastern elites and the Western elites are two entirely different sets. Exactly. They may have done business with each other in the past, but the Eastern elites will overcome the Western elites. And they're going to be the ones who establish the true New World Order. It'll be an Eastern-dominated, Eastern-centric New World Order based on their values, which their values really, really do not regard humanity or human life at all. Because secular humanism shits all over humanity. I tell people that for a reason, because it's true. It's true. Communism, fascism, socialism, the ism, secular humanism. That's what that all is. It doesn't regard human life. It values not human life. So secular humanism, those are the worst regimes that the world has ever seen or known. Democide means the act of regimes killing off their people or other people. Death by regime. That's what democide is. Secular humanist regimes are responsible for more democide, death by regime, than any other type of regime ever. It's called the ism, secular humanism. It's evil. It is the most evil set of ideologies, whether it's leftism or right-wingers. It's all evil. Secular humanism means it's not a religious, like, theocratic thing. It's not any other, it's not a republic. It's not a, whatever else. It is a form of autocratic or dictatorial rule, whether that is communism, which is an extreme leftism, or whether it's a form of right-wing type of beliefs. Fascism, they consider right-wing, even though it's more like a left-wing sort of a thing, but they call it a right-wing thing. It doesn't matter. It's still secular humanism, and it still is responsible for more deaths and more types of cruel, evil. Whenever I tell people that, I say that for a reason, for a purpose, to get people to understand how evil it is. Look what the CCP or that the North Koreans do to their own people. It is disgusting. Learn what the Khmer Rouge did to their own people in Cambodia. That's disgusting too. It is. It's like just watch a documentary about the S-21 prison, and that was only one place, or the killing fields in Cambodia. That is secular humanism. That is the direct result of secular humanism. It is cruel, it is evil, it is brutal. It is the worst type of rulership that mankind has ever had to endure. So when I say that, these Eastern elites, they like the CCP, they are one of the most brutal secular humanist regimes that has ever been on this planet, on this earth. I shouldn't say planet, but you know what I mean. On this earth. Stupid words. But you know what I'm saying. I say all of that for a purpose. To get people to understand how evil these things are. And even though that they don't believe, they claim they don't believe in anything spiritual, that is why they are allowed to be so evil. Because to deny the spiritual means that man makes himself what? Makes himself a god, right? A little g god. That means that man makes himself a little g god. So secular humanism is like Xi Jinping making himself a what? A god. He's a little g god in China. You know, he rules China. So they worship him like he's their lifelong emperor. Like he's like in secular humanism, the state, meaning the regime and its leader, are regarded as a little g god, because that's why it's called secular humanism. It's all about man making himself a god. You know, these Western satanic elites believe in Satan, but that's why they're different than the Eastern elites. The Eastern elites are godless. They're going to be the ones that are the most susceptible to the Antichrist, to the beast, to the man of sin. Because when the man of sin shows up, then he's going to be the head of their state, and he's going to be their little g god, you know? And Xi Jinping, the dragon, is going to give his power unto the beast, who is like the beast, who can make war with him. Well, if you got China in your corner, the red dragon, nobody can make war with you, because that is the most powerful nation that this world has ever seen or known. Ever. In real terms. Not in name only, but in real terms. Look at the amount of steel they produce. Look at all the military industrial factories they have. Humongous complexes. You could see them from satellite imaging. Look at all the size of their armed forces, their paramilitary, their regular military. How well trained and disciplined they are. They're all gung ho. They've really revamped and rebuilt themselves from everything they've stolen from us. They've built their own indigenous capabilities over the past 20 years. They surpassed us 5 years ago, and now they're the true world superpower in real terms. In real terms, not in no name only. We're living off our past reputation. We're like a credit card that has nothing on it. Nothing on it. Oh yeah, you got the credit card, but you ain't got shit on it. That's us, folks. That's us. We will be crushed the moment that we enter into some sort of a conflict with Russia and China. We will be crushed. We will be defeated rapidly. It won't even be a competition, folks. Especially after, we have internal issues. It'll just be that much easier. It'll just be that much easier to crush us. That is why I do what I do on this channel, to make folks aware of the realities, to shatter narratives, to shatter misconceptions, to shatter falsehoods, so that people can take real information and integrate it into their planning so that they can be more effective people. I want you to be the most effective people that you can be, I want you to be the most effective planners that you can be for yourselves, for your own emergency planning, your survival planning, your defense planning, your spiritual planning, all of it. The true New World Order will be an Eastern-dominated, centric New World Order. There will be a new UN. It'll be run by China and Russia and the other 8 of the 10 kings. Like it says in Revelation, the 10 kings will give their power unto the beast and reign with him for 1 hour. So they're going to have a short-lived one world government before it all falls apart again and before there's infighting, because Satan just can't help himself because of the greed and everything else. Think about it. You got to think about this stuff. It'll basically be one of those sorts of things. You're going to have the Eastern elites establishing their one world regime with the man of sin, and it's going to last for a short time before it all falls apart. But the dragon, China is going to give their power unto the beast. Satan in the spiritual realm, and China in the physical realm, because China is the most powerful nation in the world. Think about it. It's a layered prophecy. Many prophecies in the Bible are layered. meaning they have multiple meanings for the same prophecy. Think about that. Layered prophecies, different layers of it. So in the spiritual realm, the beast, his father, Satan, is giving him power, but in the physical realm, that manifests as China giving their power to the beast, because China is the dragon. They're the dragon country. They are the red dragon, and they're the most powerful nation on earth. So when they give their power, when they endorse the beast, he will be the most powerful in the world because he has China's backing. So think about that. Think about that. So it's going to be an Eastern-dominated New World Order. The Western elites will be destroyed and defeated. They're all a bunch of silver spoon-in-the-ass pansies with pretty hands anyway. They've never worked a day in their lives. They've never worked a day in their lives. They will be annihilated by the Eastern elites, who are warlords. They don't give a rat's ass about these Western elites, folks. They don't care about them. So when God judges Babylon, he's not just judging the people, he's judging its rulership. He judges from its highest elites to their lowest bums. That is a theme throughout the Bible. The rulership, the kings, the rulers, the ruling class, they will be cast down into slavery along with the people, the ordinary people. They're not getting away with nothing. They ain't getting away with nothing. They will be hauled off to China, and they will be used as Xi Jinping's footstool, or Vladimir Putin's footstool. That is going to happen. These Rothschilds, Rockefellers, all of them, they will end up as slaves of the CCP. They will be building him temples or pagodas or whatever Xi Jinping wants of them. They will be doing it. They will be sewing Nikes. They'll be working in rock quarries from dawn to dusk, all day, every day. They will be slaves in China with the ordinary people. They will learn the meaning of what meet the quota means. They will be meeting lots of quotas, and for the rest of their short, miserable existence. They're not getting away with nothing they've done. It don't work like that. If you do evil in this world, you will be punished by God for it in this life or in the next, or both, Think about that. It's called spiritual justice, and God, he makes sure that his will, his justice is carried out. And if he's going to use China and Russia to do that, then that's no different. It's no different than how God used Assyria and Babylon to punish Israel for turning their backs on him. Israel was punished many times for turning their backs on God. God has punished them many times, using heathen nations to do it. Why? Because Israel had the light of God, and they turned their back on him. So, he used heathen nations to punish them. United States, the people here at one time had the light of Yeshua Messiah, but they turned their back on him. Look at us now. Look at us now. Look at all this woke stuff, all this globalist garbage that's infiltrated our way of life, our whole society. God's not going to stand for that. Why do you think he punishes Babylon the way he punishes it? Because it's worse than Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. It's worse than that. It's worse. Yes, we will be punished for it. We will be. We've already been brought down. We're no longer the most powerful nation on earth. China has vastly surpassed us. Russia has surpassed us. We are a regional power. We're not even a superpower. We're losing that status because they've gutted our entire military. When we have a collapse, folks, it's over with once we have a collapse. Everything's going to stop. Everything we once had, it'll be over. It'll be over, and it's never going to come back. It's never going to come back. Once we collapse and we descend into the Syrian-style situation like I've depicted, and that's exactly how it'll go. That's exactly how it'll be, the concepts and everything. So when we descend into that, it's already over. You know it's over because you know what comes immediately after that. You know what comes immediately after that. After the whole factions and everything begin their infighting. You know what happens immediately after that. we get invaded and crushed and pounded into the dust by China and Russia. They are going to come here and they are going to rip this place a new asshole. In some cases, you could say that literally, because you know what they're going to do to our women and everything else. You know, it's going to be ugly, folks. It's going to be ugly. You all better have your plans in order for how you're going to step to the side and allow all of this to pass. Because if you have faith and you made your plans and you did your part, God will take care of the rest. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. But you can't sit on your ass and do nothing. You have to do your part. You have to make the proper planning based on this good information that's being offered, and you have to do your part. You have to get your preps in order. God will stretch it for you. He will stretch it for you. He will help your plans succeed if it's in his will to do so. You know, like I said, not everybody's going to make it, but you have a real chance. You have a real chance if you're proactive and you use the information that's been given at this channel. And even other channels too. There's other good ones, but I've compiled documentaries for you, for all of you out there. If you don't use those, then you're at a severe disadvantage. You know, I mean, you really are. I've put every conceivable angle of how these things look mechanically, all the dynamics involved. I mean, it's all like right there in one central location. Just go to my playlists. Go to my community tab. Go back, scroll back and read the stories. I mean, I realize it's annoying if you have a phone, but if you have like a PC or a laptop, there's no excuse for not reading those. It's much easier to scroll back and read each part. Each post is a part of these stories. Just go look at the heading. You'll see what story it is, and you'll see which part it is. Just go back and read them all. You have to start from the bottom and read up, of course, because of, you know, how you post things there. You know, the newest ones are always at the top as you go up. But it's all right there. This channel, between what I've written in the community post and between all the playlists I have, all the playlists, I keep everything in playlists, all in one central location under the playlist tab. It's all right there. You can go back. I even put the Friday shows in their own playlist. I put the miscellaneous shows in their own playlist that I did on other days that weren't Friday shows. I even put the documentaries in their own playlists. The internal conflict one, which is 5 whole live shows together in one playlist. I did the invasion ones too. They're all in there, all of them. And there's even other playlists, but they're not like predominantly my videos. They're just different videos that I thought were worth saving at some point or another. Too many to keep track of, but all my work is in there in the playlists, and you can go back and you can find them. Just scroll through nice and careful, comb through the playlist. You'll see which ones my work is in and which ones isn't. But go look at all of them. They're all there. They're all there. Set aside time before they take these types of channels down. You know, I'm already shadow banned. They're already attacking me with shills and everything else. You know, set aside time to go through the playlists and watch those. You won't be sorry that you did. You'll be ahead of other people. You're not going to be one of these panicking imbeciles that runs through the street and gets, you know, cut down by invaders or by the stuff going on in the internal conflict, because I showed everybody how to get through these situations, and I showed them right. So you're not going to be one of these panicking herds, you know, like these herds of panicking imbeciles. You know, you're going to be somebody that can be cool and collected and know what the hell is happening and why and how it is, so that you can get through it and be more effective as a person, as a planner. You should have your evacuation plans in order based upon where you live, what's around you. You have to be aware. Situational awareness is key in a war type of setting. Situational awareness. You need to know what is going on around you. You need to know what your surroundings are. You need to know what sorts of places will offer you the best cover and concealment. You need to know how to bound and cover from place to place. You want to stay low, keep a low silhouette, low profile as you do it. You want to be on the move. It's very difficult to hit a moving target. Now, you always want to stay moving. You do not ever want to stay in one location for too long unless you know it's a hidden and safe location. So, I put all sorts of examples of those sorts of things, even in the audiobook so far. You can see, look what the characters are dealing with. Look how they move around. Look what they do. Look where they go. Look what sorts of things happen. I show what works, what doesn't, and why, and I show how. So many examples of these things in this work. So much of it. So much. Let me see what people are saying here. Yeah, Aaron, absolutely. Aaron, you're right. Everybody is going to be on foot. You're not going to want to be in a vehicle, or unless you just want to run a gauntlet of so many different threats and perils. I mean, you're not going to want to be in a vehicle in a foreign invasion. Now, in an internal conflict, it's a little different. In an internal conflict, yeah, you probably could get away with, using a vehicle because, they're not going to be like necessarily going after every single vehicle unless they know it's an enemy technical or something. You know what a technical is, people that mount, weapon systems on civilian vehicles like trucks especially. But if you're like in a vehicle and you're like in an SUV and you're just minding your own business in an internal conflict, it's highly unlikely that they're going to just go after you unless they're just a bunch of, pricks. But it just depends on the enemy, the faction, and whatever. But in a foreign invasion, if you're in a vehicle, oh no, that's not where you want to be. That's not where you want to be. You want to be on foot. On foot. You want to be an individual on foot. And you want to be navigating through different terrain, using everything you can for cover and concealment, whether that's ravines, whether it's ditches, whether it's boulders that you run between, whether it's trees, whatever. You want to stay under a canopy of thick forest where there's pines, coniferous trees like pine trees that block infrared signatures. You want to be in thick forested areas. You want to be in the woods. You want to run through ravines using them to cover your silhouette. Keep you having a low silhouette so that you're hardly seen, like basically like natural trench systems. You want to stay low, you want to stay hidden, and you want to use all the cover and concealment you can. So that's how you move. That's how you go from place to place. You want to stay nomadic or semi-nomadic. I put so many examples of that exact type of thing in the stories. You can go back and read those, or you could just keep listening to the audiobook. I'll keep putting out more parts of the audiobook. There's going to be so many examples of so many things in that audiobook. You're going to really learn a lot. That's mostly because I'm doing that for those who didn't want to read the actual typed out stories that I typed out. The audiobook is more or less just another version of what I've typed out, but it's a new story with new characters. And I'm doing it sort of ambitious because I'm covering different regions all at the same time, 3 different regions so far. I'm talking about the capital region, I'm talking about a place in Michigan, and I'm talking about the Northwest, where the Northwest battles happened in my Northwest documentary. But I'm showing it through a character level perspective. I've already done the battle maps for it in that Northwest documentary, but I'm integrating that that whole aspect of that area into the story by putting characters who are on the ground during those happenings that I've already shown on the maps in that documentary. So now you're seeing it from a character point of view on the ground, like a street level point of view. So there are so many different things in this that I've created it for everybody that God's put on my heart to do, to create these things, to help people navigate this stuff. All you all are not here for no reason. God has connected us all for a reason. You're not here for no reason. I don't believe that. Those of you who listen regularly, y'all are here to learn. Learn all you can. Integrate it into your emergency planning. You will be far more effective than the average Joe Blow who doesn't know a damn thing about none of this, who's going to go out and get themselves annihilated because they don't know nothing about no traps, no sharpshooters or snipers or aerial threats or any of that stuff. They don't know nothing about none of it. So many people are going to be taken off in vehicles and getting strafed and maybe even, having ordinances dropped on them too, on top of that, as if strafing with exploding tip rounds wasn't bad enough, I mean, there's going to be so many threats, reconnaissance drones, and they're armed, even armed drones. I mean, there's going to be fighters and fighter tactical fighter bombers. There's going to be strategic bombers that just carpet munition entire areas, like leave like a miniature Nagasaki that's basically in a straight line. Like whatever they fly over is basically like the ordnance of conventional ordnance equivalent of a Nagasaki attack, but in a straight line. I mean, those strategic bombers carry so many conventional munitions, you all. I mean, it's really it is. It's almost like a Nagasaki in a straight line. From like I'm talking about the conventional power of all that they carry, all the different conventional ordinances they can load up one of those with. It is the conventional equivalent of a Nagasaki, but in a straight line. Like whatever that thing flies over and drops all its payload on, it's like a Nagasaki spread out across the straight line. So you got all these different threats. The conventional threats are every bit as bad as anything a nuke can do. I mean, really, they are. If you think about it, if you do the math of the conventional ordnance and how powerful those conventional ordinances are, it's no different, really, than a low yield nuke. I mean, it's basically the same thing. So they can do with conventional weaponry what nukes can do, and even over time. But they can do it with more accuracy. Like they can hit exactly what they're trying to hit and not destroy everything else. Because remember, they want to colonize us. They want our land and everything intact, infrastructure-wise, that they can. And if they damage it, they want to at least know that they can repair it and that it's not like an irradiated wasteland where they can't work in it. So they're going to drastically be dependent upon conventional munitions, okay? Yeah, sure, they're going to use some nukes, but that's not the primary issue. That's not the primary issue. That's just a bunch of hype BS. Anytime you see all this stuff talking about nukes, it's all a bunch of hype. It's hype. Nobody in their right mind is going to, totally annihilate this place with nukes. Why would they go to war with us then? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. When you go to war with somebody, you go to war because you have objectives that make sense. They're trying to colonize us, folks. You're not going to nuke and irradiate the land you're trying to colonize. I mean, sure, they'll use a couple, but it's not going to be a full-scale nuclear exchange. It's not going to happen. It ain't going to work like that, folks. It's going to be very limited, like a handful. It's going to be a bunch of tactical nukes, like maybe a couple dozen. It's going to be maybe a small handful of strategic nukes, like your city killers. Very few of those. It's not going to be a full-scale nuclear, Armageddon. No, it's going to be a lot of conventional weapons. Even the Bible talks about there being armies here, armies invading, armies. They're not going to nuke everything and send armies in. Like that doesn't even make sense, folks. Doesn't even make sense. No, they want this intact. There's going to be mostly conventional munitions used, and the conventional munitions they have so much that it's going to annihilate this place without them having to worry about, the pollution factor. They have like millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of artillery shells and rockets and everything else. And then they have tens upon tens of thousands of different missiles, conventional. They have enough conventional ordnance, especially China, especially them. They have enough conventional ordnance to totally saturate this whole country like 2 times over. All the territory of it. They have you don't even understand the amount of artillery shells that China has. And Russia too, they have a lot. Quantity has a quality all of its own. Khrushchev said that. And he's right. He was right. You know, think about it. If you just stocked up and produced nonstop artillery shells in the many millions, you could saturate a nation this size a few times over with artillery. A whole country. They have stockpiles that large of artillery and rocket artillery. They have tens of thousands of missiles, maybe even in the hundreds of thousands. They don't disclose every single thing they have. We though, we know that we don't have it like that. We ain't got it like that, folks. We ain't got it like that. We ain't got it like that. I mean, my good Lord, man, we gave a third of all of our rocket artillery ammo for the HIMARS and the M270, the MLRS. We gave that all. We gave a third of it all to the Ukrainians. That black hole in Eastern Europe, known as Ukraine, we gave a third of them away. Lunacy. All the anti-tank missiles we've given them. Not just javelins, but TOW missiles and all these other anti-tank weapons we've given that black hole to just suck it up, and most of it doesn't even get used. It gets sold to places it has no business going. It's lunacy. This land is being destroyed on purpose. It's been subverted not only by the Western elites, but by the Eastern elites. China and Russia are tag teaming us right now, folks. China's denying us. They're denying us exports so that we can't. Our military industrial complex is heavily dependent on Chinese components. So, they're denying us these components while Russia is destroying everything, or either that or it's getting sold on the black market. They're tag teaming us. We're being depleted systematically. And when there's a Syrian-style internal conflict, we're going to be depleted just that much more. So all of these factors I go over, and the reason is this. It's simply this. Get your evacuation planning in order. You got to learn how to sidestep this stuff, folks. Sidestep it. Maintain a defensive posture and sidestep it. Always remember, nobody has a higher claim over your property or your life than you. I'm talking about other human beings. There's no other human beings that have real authority over you. They just claim they do. But if you're dumb enough to believe it, then that's on you. But no one has a higher claim over your life or property than you do. No costumed anybody, no bandit, no foreign armies, nothing. Nobody has a higher claim over your life and property than you do. You have every right to defend yourself from any aggressor with malintent towards you and your family or the innocent around you, whoever. Nobody has a higher claim over your life and property than you. I don't give a damn who it is. I have 3 red lines, and these red lines have not been crossed just yet, but I have 3 red lines. Nobody's forcing anything into my body against my will. That's 1. Nobody's taking me to no camp. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the Chinese or whatever. Nobody's taking me to no camp or doing roundups. That's another red line. I don't care if it's the Chi-Coms or whoever, And the third one is nobody is stealing from me. I don't care what excuse it is. Nobody's stealing from me, period. I don't care if it's bandits or anybody else. Nobody is stealing from me. Those are my 3 red lines. They're more than reasonable red lines. They're more than reasonable. Everybody should have those as their red lines. They're very reasonable red lines to defend yourself from. They're beyond reasonable. Anybody that doesn't have those as their red lines, well, you should worry about the state of their mental well-being, because nobody should want to be violated in those ways. Nobody. So I'm relatively, I'm relatively calm. I'm a calm, nice, kind-hearted person. But I will defend myself. Don't take my kindness for weakness. I will defend myself. And those 3 red lines? Yeah. violate those if you want to, or try to. But I will defend myself from those three types of things. I don't care if it's the Chi-Coms doing it. I don't care if it's common bandits. I don't care who it is. Nobody's doing any of those things to me. End of story. So everybody should have their red lines, and everybody should have their affairs in order, because everything's going downhill so fast. Even in a collapse, you're going to start seeing the very things come to pass that were in that hypothetical about the Syrian-style situation. And beyond that, then comes your foreign invasion. Now, if you could sidestep all of that, then I applaud you. If you could sidestep all of that, navigate around it, navigate through it, around it, etc. If you can do that, then I applaud you. That means that you were effective because you knew how to take good information and you knew how to integrate it. You knew how to integrate it into your own personal emergency planning. Your planning. You knew how to integrate it. So I would applaud you for that. So let's see what everybody's saying. I've been talking quite a while here. Hey there, Mary and Occult Gems, and yeah, thank you, Casey. Thank you. Yes, Aaron, absolutely. Finish it. You shouldn't be putting up with nothing like that. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, sweetheart. Hey, Brandy. Thank you, Brandy. I'm glad to have everybody here. Hey, Just Man, how you doing? Yes, Just Man, that's exactly right. Why do you think our women are going to be targeted by the Chi-Coms the way they are? And the Russians, I'm sure, but mostly by the Chi-Coms. They're the ones that are going to do horrific things. Their brand of secular humanism that the CCP espouses is so brutally ugly. It is so brutally ugly. It has no regard for any human life whatsoever. The CCP is one of the most brutal secular humanist regimes that's ever been on this earth. They're worse than the Nazis even, I would say, at this point. Or they're up there with them, at least. And maybe Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. They're up there with them, too. And North Korea. North Korea is really evil and ugly, too. So is the Khmer Rouge. Those are some of the ugliest secular humanist regimes that have ever been on this earth. Jeffrey, howdy. All smiles, howdy. Shadow Tracks, great to see you. What do I recommend is this? Well, I have a couple. If you saw my thumbnail, I personally go with the 380 as a pocket weapon, and 380 is basically a 9. I mean, in diameter, it's a 9 mil. It's just a shorter 9 mil. It's only a scant 2 millimeters shorter than a regular 9 mil Luger. It's a 9 by 17. The casing is 17 millimeters. It's a 9 by 17, whereas the 9 mil Luger that everybody knows is a 9 by 19. It almost has the same power. I mean, it's just a little bit less powder. So it's still good. It's still a great sidearm. But I also have a 40. I have a 40. Now that thing's like a hand cannon. The one with the laser light combo, that's a hand cannon. But its diameter, it's like a 40 is a shortened 10 millimeter. You know what a 10 mil is. It's a shortened 10 mil. That's all a 40 is. It's a shortened 10 millimeter. It's like a 10 millimeter short. But it's still very, very powerful. I mean, we're talking about a 180 grain round, flying at over 1,050 feet per second muzzle velocity. That's immensely powerful. That's a hand cannon. The velocity of it is even faster than a 45. 45 is sort of like a slow roll. It's like when you shoot the 45, you barely notice the recoil. I mean, it's not the recoil of a 45 isn't that bad, but that's because the muzzle velocity is slower. When you shoot that 40, that thing whips your hand back. It's like pow, I like the 40 But I also love my 380. My 380. It's just a 9 short. But that's like my pocket pistol. I got a nice extendo on it, an extendo, because it's a single stacked Ruger. It's a Ruger LCP, so it's a single stacked mag. But I got an extendo, so it's like a 10. It's like a little gangsta, like 10 rounder. They got 15s too, but people have complained about the 15 extendos because they say that the springs in it aren't that effective. But here, I'll show you all. Hold on. Let me do this here. There we go. There's my LCP right here. Got the extendo in it. Yeah, got a 10 rounder. Yeah, hold on. And then, of course, you got this bad boy. You got my Glock 22, which is a 40. Man, this thing's a monster right here. Big brown. It's a double stacked mag, obviously, but you know, it's a bit different than the other. Yeah, you got the old laser light combo. It's hard to see through a camera, but you can see. Hold on. I'm trying to get the laser to. It's hard to see through a camera lens. Laser is, but it's there. It's there amid the flashlight part. And of course, you got these bad boys here. You know, I love that 30-30. That thing, the 30-30 is like an AK round, but with more power. Meaning that the diameter, it is like basically a 7.62 almost. I mean, it's a 30 cal round, but it's got more grains in the round. It's like a longer casing behind it, more power. Its ballistics are similar. The ballistics for the 30-30 are similar to the AK. You know, I mean, when it leaves the muzzle, it's got similar muzzle velocity, but the round has more energy because we're talking about more grains. 150 grain to even as high as 170. 170. This thing is a monster. You know, you get smacked by one of these, you're going down, you know. And then of course I got this, you know. Got my regular here, you know, so I love this. I love this thing. Got a red dot on it, you know, so I can, you know, get my accuracy nice and good. I got backup iron sights too, but they're the pop-up ones, you know, if I need to. You can pop it up if you want. But I leave them down. I like this setup. I love this setup a lot more than my what I had in the Army. In the Army, they tried to give us ACOG lasers, but those things, I mean red dots, but those things were garbage. I hated the ACOG because the laser would bounce around. I mean, the red dot sight thing, and it would bounce around. And it made it really hard to get an accurate follow-up shot. But this thing stands still. This one is still. It doesn't bounce around in there when you shoot. So, no, I really like that. But I put one on my 30-30 too for accuracy. But if that's just what I prefer, you know. If you well, yeah, they do. Some of it is, Casey, some of it is. Like some of the 7.62 ammunition comes from China, or it comes from Serbia. Serbia and the former Yugoslavia make a lot of 7.62 by 39 ammo. Basically, Shadow Tracks in the Army. I took that stupid ACOG off. It was worthless. It was garbage. I took the stupid ACOG off my M4. when I was in the Army. But yeah, if you, yeah, if that's what you wanted to know, well, I just shared mine with you, Shadow Tracks. Was that you that asked about a sidearm? Well, I have two, so it's all in the preference of the user. Some people like nines, like standard nine, like Luger, like nine Lugers. Some people even like the 9 Makarov, which is the Russian 9 millimeter. It's 9 by 18. Some people like, I don't know, there's people out there that like revolvers. I think a revolver is stupid because it's hard to, I mean, in combat it is because, I mean, unless you're just really that quick at loading a revolver, it's a pain in the ass, man. It's just nice to have like a mag-loaded weapon that you can just slap a mag into. I wouldn't take a revolver as a sidearm, but I mean, maybe like a, I don't know. I don't know. I like revolvers. I'm not dissing on revolvers, but I don't like them for like combat. I mean, they're like a pain in the ass to reload, and you unless you're just really that good at it. They don't carry that much ammo. I mean, you get like what 5 to 6 shots. Most revolver chambers only have space for 5 or 6 rounds. You don't get much from that. I don't know. It's all in the preference of the shooter, I guess, the user. I don't like revolvers. I like magazine-fed weapons. So, and the caliber is all up to the preference too. I mean, some people like 45s, but a 45, even though it's a heavy round, it's got a nice heavy grainage to it. Its velocity for me isn't. I mean, that's sort of like the drawback to it. It's not as fast as a 40. A 40 is this humongous, like 180 grain round traveling extremely fast. I mean, the 45 obviously weighs more, but its velocity is slower, which, a slower moving round doesn't have like the penetration that like a faster moving round has, Typically, a faster moving heavy round that's almost as heavy anyway. 180 grains is a nice weight for a pistol ammunition, but that's just my take on it. But let's get back to the stream. Let's see what people are saying here. Let me see. I mean, 45 is all right, Shadow Tracks, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't go with the 45 because of I like the 40 better. I like the 40 a lot better. Yeah, Jeffrey, when that comes to that type of thing, you got to have your own logistical train all set and ready, That's hard to supply people that unless they just have their own supplies set aside, like caches and things of their own ammunition, it's hard to supply a partisan element logistically because different people are going to be carrying different weapons. You're going to have like people with like 30-06, you're going to have people with 30-30, you're going to have people with like, 7.62 by 54, the Russian ammo. You're going to have like 7.62 by 51, the NATO. You're going to have people carrying all types of stuff. You're going to have people carrying like 7.62 by 39s and 5.56s, 5.45s. It's going to be hard to keep all that many variety of weapons, supplied. You got to supply all these people. How are you going to like have all these different ammunition types available at the ready? See, that's when I was talking in the internal conflict scenario. I even said that in the Macon battle. When I was doing the Macon battle, I said, it's a headache. It's a real headache to keep the militia type forces supplied because there's so many different people carrying so many different calibers. Think about that. That would be a headache to keep everybody supplied. There would be like no standardization, which is why people should have their own supplies at the ready, Because if you don't, and you're going to depend on somebody else, they might not have the right caliber size. That's what I was saying in the internal conflict thing. It was a headache at times to keep everybody supplied with the correct ammunition. Whereas the military side of things, like with the old military units that broke off, they already had their own logistical systems, and they already had standardization of, like, everybody was carrying the same caliber weapons, like M16s, M4s. Everybody had their own, like, standardization. So that's why the military and, like, the irregulars, like your militias and partisans, that's why they had their own separate logistical systems, because there was standardization on one side with the military side, but then when you have, like, different people carrying all different types of arms, you're going to have problems supplying those people. Not that it can't be done, but that you would have a headache finding the right ammo for everybody to have their ammo. Think about that. Think about that. You got to equate these things to real life situations. You got to understand how hard some of this would really be. You know, like, what if they don't have the right ammo that you're carrying? Then you're in trouble. Then you're empty. You're empty. And when you're empty, you're combat ineffective. Combat ineffective. You're sitting duck, or you can't really do anything. So you got to think about these things. You got to equate them to real life situations. That's why I made the scenarios the way I made them. That's why I added all that in there. All these dynamics are important to understand. I told people you should be finding places in nature, near where you're going to be staying or moving around as a nomad or a semi-nomad. You need to find places in nature and start caching away ammunition, food, water. Hide it, bury it, whatever you have to do. But you need to find places that are not in one central location, because you're going to be moving around a lot to avoid your enemies. To avoid your enemies. You will be moving around a lot and living in the woods. And if you're going to be moving place to place, you're going to have caches. Caches of supplies that you can rely upon to survive. I'm trying to help everybody the best I can. These are gems of knowledge. Gems of knowledge. Gold. So people should be really taking all the info I've provided on this channel. They should take it seriously, and they should learn how to implement that into their own emergency planning. This is very important. Oh, boy. Well, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, everybody. Yeah. Shotguns are okay, Mary, but they're only okay for, like, really close range. I look at a shotgun the way I look at a pistol. It's like really a close-in type of thing. They're no good for anything of, like, moderate to long ranges. You want a rifle. You really need a rifle, a really good, reliable rifle. That's why armies use rifles and not, you know, they don't arm everybody with a shotgun, because shotguns aren't really like a moderate to long range type of thing. They're like really short range, typically. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, Mary, the first responders thing, that's always good to know, at least basic first aid. You know, I've had to take combat lifesavers course in the Army when I was in the Army, and that's like, you know, you have to take that every year to get your certification, you know, so that you're, you know, because in combat, you know, before you go to Iraq, you need to know how to save people if they get, like, you know, a limb blown off or whatever, or, you know, or they get shot and get like a tension pneumothorax, where you got to, like, you know, where they're like lung shot, and you got to, like, you know, release the air from their what's that called? Their diaphragm, because the air pocket that was created is like pushing on their lungs and suffocating them. You have to, like, release the air from their diaphragm. Yeah, you got to learn all that stuff. I still remember some of it all these years later. Well, everybody, I'm glad that you all came to this. This is very important. I just wanted to remind everybody that you all need to be using all the free information, because all information really should be free. I mean, you know, I wouldn't be the type of asshole that would hide this stuff behind a paywall. You know, I've offered everything I could for free. And people that are idiots overlook it, but the wise ones, they take it and learn from it. I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt. I've been to Iraq, I've been in combat, I got the t-shirt. You know, as the saying goes, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. You all would be wise to really review these things and Implement the knowledge into your own emergency planning. You don't want to be that idiot that goes along with what the herd is doing and panic and gets, butchered by the Chinese and Russians. You don't want to be that guy. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Be the one that's cool, calm, and collected, that already has plans, and stick to your plans. Train in self-defense. Learn basic tactics. You can learn. I offer all that stuff here. Go to the community tab, story reviews. Look at all of it. Look at all of it. My God, it's not even but like an hour and a half long, the entire thing, or maybe 2 hours at the very most. It's not very long. It's only like 25 videos. They're all pretty short. Longest being like maybe 15 minutes. But anyways, I enjoyed having you all. Things are getting serious, so I'm taking more of a serious tone, and I'm going to do a review with like situational types of things where I'm going to implement everything into like one just live show where I'm going to use visual aids like maps and situations that I'm going to like have drawn out, and maybe even some of the older ones I'll put back in because they were that important. They were that important. The people should be paying attention to them. So I enjoyed having everybody. Thank you all for coming, everybody. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Brandy and Jeffrey and Shadow Tracks and Jennifer, my love. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You all be blessed. Thank you, Mary.